Today I want to talk about the future of exploration and why I believe the next great frontier is the deep ocean. Now, this journey begins for me in an odd place, considering I'm about to talk about the deep ocean, in the middle of the desert, in a landlocked country, about as far from the ocean as you could possibly get. I'd grown a beard, I was on the phone for some reason. But I was leading an expedition in search of archaeological evidence of the grass Silk Road across the Mongolian steppe and the Gobi Desert. It's slightly embarrassing to talk about it now, but I thought I was a bit of an explorer then, and it turns out I was wrong. But it was actually one of the least, or one of the worst organized expeditions ever mounted. Everything started to go wrong quite quickly. No one really knew how to ride horses. We were held hostage by some thugs. We ended up being imprisoned. For some reason, they thought we were spies, which is a bit of a joke. And we unexpectedly had to walk across the Gobi Desert, which is about 1,200 miles. And we got to about 150 miles from the border crossing point, from Mongolia into China. And I made a really, really stupid decision. I decided to leave my teammates and walk off by myself. I wanted to get to the border by myself, which was a bit stupid. And everything started to unravel pretty quickly from that point. I managed to drop my food and water. I got lost, it got dark, it got cold, the temperature dropped below zero, and I collapsed, and I thought that was it. And as I was laying there, I asked myself, had it all really been worth it? Could I really, if I got to the pearly gates, could I really stand there and go, you know what, I did something good for the world? And it was then when I was trying, I suppose, give my life some sort of meaning, that I had a bit of an epiphany. I realized that our exploration drives progress. Our survival and our flourishing depends on exploration. Our ability to push out the frontiers of new knowledge and learn something new. If we go back through history and look through the prism of exploration, maybe that can help us define where those frontiers are. And if we do that, then, as unlikely as it sounds, this might be our first explorer. This is the great cichlid fish. 400 million years ago, this fish climbed out of the sea and walked on land. Now, I want to call her Marina because, after all, she comes from the sea. And little Marina climbed onto land. I like to think that first, but even before we were human, we had this impulse to explore new lands, to explore new habitats, and we had an impulse to go beyond into the unknown. And I don't think we should forget Marina now, not least because of that explorer impulse that I think we all carry with us today, but because we still keep some memories of her today. We have gills in a human embryo. We cry salty tears. Our blood has the same salinity as the ocean, and we hiccup, all because of our aquatic origins, all because we used to be fish. Over the years, I really don't have time to skip through 400 million years of our evolution and our progression. I don't really have the brain power to do that either. But I think it's important just to look at what the motivation has been for that exploration over the last few thousand years. Our exploration has been motivated by a hunger, an appetite for resources, by conflict, by conquest, by religion, by lots of different things. We've now got to the point where we can look at our planet and think we've conquered most of the great frontiers. We've been to the summit of Everest, we've been to the poles, and we've taken flags there, which is always good news. We've even put a flag, look, at the bottom of the North Pole, underneath the ice, on the seabed there. And we've even been to the moon, and we put a flag there. As if these journeys weren't hard enough, we decided that, you know what, we're going to go there and we're going to stick a flag there as well. It's curious, like Armstrong, on his way to the moon, the day before, he's packing. What have I got? Have I got my shoes? I've got my socks. I've got my sandwiches. Never forget the sandwiches. My space rocket, I'll pick that up at Cape Canaveral. Something I've forgotten here. Oh, the flag! Yes, that flag. Must take the flag. Yes, the flag. Well, good to hear we got some Eddie Izzard fans here. Anyway, the flag thing. We'll come back to that probably at some point. But I think exploration is about other things, obviously, just more than just planting flags. It's about the unknown. It's part of the human condition. It's that curiosity to go beyond, to see a closed door and wanting to go beyond it. it gives us a sense of mystery that inspires us. It expands our minds and our souls. It's critical for us. It radically transforms our understanding of who we are and our relationship to each of us and the relationship we have to our planet. And that's exactly what happened when we went to space. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and all those other astronauts went to space, they looked back and they saw this for the first time. Our planet as a blue dot, a little blue dot floating in the universe. It was alone, fragile, and blue. A blue planet. And over the years, we've started to realize that that big blue bit that covers about 3/4 of our planet is actually the least known thing on our planet. And we have barely laid eyes on any of our ocean. That's what's so extraordinary about it. But we've covered a lot of land. You've probably heard it said before that we've mapped most of land, but we've only mapped about 5% of our ocean, of the seabed. But I think that holds a fundamental truth, because on land, our biosphere, where there's life, is only about a couple hundred feet rising above the surface, and that's when they're tall trees. But in the ocean, that three-dimensional living space is vast. Vertically, it covers 3/4 of our planet, but horizontally, the average depth of the ocean is 13,000 feet, and we've barely laid eyes on any of it. And it holds 95% of our biosphere. It's our reservoir of life. And the first people to ever descend into the abyss were these guys, William Beebe and Otis Barton. And that first journey into the abyss, it began here in Bermuda, a couple of miles from where we are now on Nonsuch Island. This was our Cape Canaveral, and these guys were our Yuri Gagarin. Very few people recognize them as that, or recognize Bermuda as the Cape Canaveral, our launch point into this extraordinary era of exploration. And others have followed them. We've had Don Walsh and Jacques Picard, who went down in this submersible, the Trieste. They went down to the full ocean depth. They went down 7 miles, 36,000 feet in 1960. And other great pioneers have followed them. Their film director, Jim Cameron, went down into Marianas Trench only a couple of years ago. But there's been Bob Ballard, there's Sylvia Earle, there's David Gallo, and thousands of other extraordinary scientists have been down there. And they're starting to reveal to us what the deep ocean is all about. It's this undiscovered world of vast abyssal plains, of hydrothermal vents and cold seeps and methane seeps. And the biggest mountain range on Earth is down there. It's that red line you can see going across the Atlantic, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And there are waterfalls down there. Yeah, waterfalls. It's extraordinary to think. But the biggest waterfall on Earth is actually underwater. It's 3 times the height of Angel Falls, and over 2,000 times the amount of water goes over it than goes over Niagara Falls. And they're extraordinary creatures down there. This is my favorite. This is the Dracula of the abyss, the vampire squid. And this thing hasn't changed much for millions and millions of years. It is literally a living fossil. But scientists think there may be at least 1 million more marine plant and animal species in the deep ocean waiting for us to discover. And we're just starting to understand their value. Like this sponge was found off the waters of New Zealand, and it's now being used to make drugs to tackle cancer. And there are other marine organisms that are being used in the frontline fight against HIV, against malaria, and against TB. But imagine what those 1 million new species waiting for us to discover could do. How could they advance clinical virology or medical microbiology or genetics? We're only just starting to understand just how valuable our ocean is for us. We now know that it's our life support system. We need our ocean if we want to continue life as we know it on this planet. It produces half of our oxygen. It's like our second lung. It captures at least 1/3 of the carbon dioxide that we've emitted. It produces the primary source of protein for 1.5 billion people. It regulates our climate and our temperature. It's absorbed 90% of the heat that we've produced. But we've got a problem. And the problem is that we're destroying our ocean far quicker than we can actually understand it. Now, over the last few years, I've started to report on the different impacts we're having around the world, and the picture is quite similar wherever we go. We are destabilizing our ocean. And I'm not going to talk about all the impacts, I just want to raise a couple. The first is our coral reefs. Now, we're on an island here, surrounded by a beautiful coral reef, and here, more than ever, more than anywhere, you'll appreciate just how beautiful and wonderful and important those coral reefs are for us. We're just starting to understand their value and importance to us. But the problem is, this is how too many reefs are now looking around the world. We've lost 40% of our reefs in the last 30 years. And the reason this is critical is that because these reefs are like our canary in the mine when it comes to the oceans. If they start dying, we know that there is something really serious going on. This is one of the saddest things I've seen in my recent reporting, the effect that we're having from our trawlers and our dredgers around the world. And this isn't an aerial shot of a field. This is a side-scan sonar shot of the seabed after trawlers have crawled their way across it. And this is what it looks like before and after those trawlers have wreaked their havoc across those seabeds, those critical nurseries for our fish and the marine organisms. It's as if on land we got a big bulldozer and we drove it across the countryside, felling all the trees, scooping up all the wildlife, destroying all the trees just to catch a few cows. But imagine if you could actually see that. Imagine the public outcry which you would have. Now imagine the scale of it, what's happening today. Now, the land on our planet makes up about 150 million square kilometers. And every year, our trawlers and dredgers go round the seabed, and they trawl over 15 million square kilometers every single year. So all in, what the scientists that I've been working with have been telling me is that we are taking our oceans to the edge of viability. There hasn't been a disruption of comparable severity in our oceans for the last 55 million years, maybe even 300 million years. We are threatening to destroy their viability to support life as we know on our planet. As Sylvia Earle has said, we've got the next 10 years will determine the next 10,000. So the good news is we've got a window of opportunity here. We've got 10 years to try and fix this problem. But the big problem I think that we face right now is that we are fundamentally disconnected from our ocean. There are a few good people out there trying to do great things, trying to raise awareness about what's happening. But overall, we are fundamentally disconnected from what's happening. We are of the land, ultimately, and we go to the edge of shore, and we look out and we see this beautiful blue constant horizon, and we think it is endless, we think it is infinite. But it's not. So what we need to do is find a new way to reconnect us with the ocean. How are we going to do it? Now, the last time this happened at scale was down to this chap, Jacques Cousteau and his merry team. There's breakthroughs in technology which enabled him and his team to explore the sunlit zone of the ocean. And for a moment, millions and millions of people around the world were captivated. And we started to think blue. And in the last few decades, we've had new technological breakthroughs, which now mean that the deep sea is now accessible to us. So in the 21st century, our deep ocean, that critical frontier, possibly even the most critical frontier that we, humanity, have ever faced, can now finally be known to us. There are different things available to us to start exploring the deep. We've got remote operated vehicles, ROVs, we've got AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, and we need more of them. We need a whole fleet of them. But if we want to reconnect to the ocean, we need to find that vital human link back to the ocean. Humanity needs to be at the center of this new journey of exploration. And to do that, we need to use our manned submersibles. But the problem is there's only 8 government-owned manned submersibles in the world which are being used for science. This one belongs to the Chinese. It's called the Jiaolong. It takes 3 people down 7,000 meters. And you've guessed it, it's being used to plant flags, as well as probably some other military applications, resource exploration, exploitation, and not a lot of science. But the good news is that there is a new breed of craft. Some private companies like Triton, U-Boat Works, Seamagine, Duo Marine, Nutco, who are designing these sexy-looking machines, and they are starting to open up the abyss in a radical, exciting new way. This submersible, this is the Triton. It was in this submarine that they found the first giant squid alive in the deep. And there's another species, a bigger species, the colossal squid that's waiting for us to discover it. And it's the size of a minibus. So I can now report with confidence that the Beatles were right. We all need to live in yellow submarines. But what's so exciting about these machines is that transparent spherical pressure hull, because that gives us a radically new perspective for scientists to observe the habitats they study. It also enables us to witness man in the deep. And it's that single thing that gives us the opportunity to create the human link that we need to fundamentally change our relationship with the ocean forever. We've had our pioneers. We've had the Jacques Picards and Don Walsh, the William Beebes and the Otis Bartons. But now what we need are shuttle missions into the deep. We need a people-powered NASA for the oceans. Those shuttles embodied space exploration, and our new submersibles can start to embody this new global odyssey. It can help us change direction. We can go down into the deep now, and we can learn new knowledge. With that new knowledge, it will start to change our course. We need to learn more about the carbon cycle. We need to learn more about how the deep ocean affects the climate, how it affects atmosphere. And with that knowledge, it will help to inform our political and our economic decisions that will ultimately drive our progress. Now, Jacques Cousteau inspired us to fall in love with the wonder, with the awe, and the magnificence of the ocean. And we need to do that again, because only if we start to fall in love with the ocean will we ultimately ever want to protect it. And will the next generation ever want to become aquanauts? Now, thinking back to the Gobi 15 years ago, I wanted to be an explorer. I wanted to tap into that spirit of mariner to walk on land. And now my dream is to become a submersible pilot and to help launch those shuttle missions into the deep. But please join us. Let's go deep.